Well, good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to the Fantasy Roundup for Tuesday, December the 20th. It's week 16 of the NFL season. It is semifinal week in most fantasy football leagues. Spencer, the guru, is to my right and took my last playoff spot in the Bayou Bets Listener League. A total collapse. I have no excuse. All I needed to do, well, actually, if I had won one more game, I think you caught me on points. So,
Yeah.
you know, I got nothing to say. I'm Dennis Allen. We lost the game. We didn't play well.
we
Uh,
played hard. We competed.
Finished fifth. What can you do?
Yeah.
We
Hey, I
finished
mean,
fifth.
I gotta say that was a fun fight. I mean, I said a couple weeks ago I like my chances because my team looked stacked on paper. They just hadn't been coming through, and thankfully they finally stepped up. I mean, like Christian McCaffrey's back to being Christian McCaffrey. Saquon stepped up this week when I needed him. I was a little nervous about that Sunday night because Saquon's been kind of a letdown lately. I was like, man, if that ends up costing me, but he came through, and yeah, we're on to the next one. Bucktown Rebel, you're going down.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I know Bucktown Rebel. Well, the Saints-Panthers tickets on the line has been great all year long. He's got some injuries. He's got Jalen Hurts on his team.
Ooh.
Um, you got a pretty good chance. I might even favor you in that one, even as the 4 seed. So Aspen Angel says, "Miss y'all in Arizona." I tell you one thing you don't miss is the weather in the rest of the country. Um, Arizona probably one of the few places that has it right. Um, we got to talk about the weather too, Spencer, because it is
Oh yeah.
brutal this weekend. There's zero games, no games with a total above 50, and there's 11 of them. No, it's not quite that many, but it's like um, 8 games below 40, including like Saints Browns is 31 and a half. I wrote a story on bet.nola.com this morning. That's the lowest total in the NFL since 2008 if it closes there. And if it even
Man.
ticks down another half a point, then you got to go back to 2006. We haven't had a total below 30 since 1993. So we could potentially see that with more movement. That was actually the day after Christmas, not the day before, and there was 4 games that day that had a total of 30 or below, including Saints Eagles. So it like historically low totals, and from a fantasy perspective, that means it's going to be like 100 points might win you some of these matchups. It's going to be hard to come by these points. It also means you're going to want the few games that are being played indoors on turf or in good weather. You got to target those guys if you can.
Yeah, for sure. There's as I saw with the total slide, there's like 5 or 6 matchups that look promising, and then the rest all look kind of just down bad as far as there's not going to be a whole lot of offense most likely with this. I'm guessing it's a big blizzard that's sweeping through the Northeast because all these teams that are playing up there have these low totals.
Yeah, and I think it's not just snow; it's wind. That's the
Yeah.
big thing in Browns Saints. 30-mile-an-hour plus sustained winds, not just gusts. You're not going to be able to throw the ball. Plus, it's 15 degrees. The ball's going to be hard as a rock. Even if you do manage to get it to a receiver, it's harder to catch. So,
Yeah.
it's running back's good in that game, but obviously fewer snaps in general. It's just tough. As you see here, the top of the board only a little bit lower. Usually you have a game or two above 50. So we got a 49 and a half on that's Packers Dolphins on Sunday, 48 and a half Seahawks Chiefs. But you only got 5 totals above 45. 44 is about average for an NFL total. We've only got 6 out of the 16 games above 44. So it's very low. It's going to make scoring tough in real life. It's going to make scoring tough in fantasy. And by the way, if you want to bet some of those totals, you can go to NOLA.com/Caesars. We're brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. You can go to LSUposter.com if you're an LSU fan. If you're a Saints fan, we've got some Saints posters as well you can choose from. 20 different posters you can choose from. You get to pick out 3 of them just for becoming a Caesars user, making a deposit, and a minimum of a $10 bet. You get to pick out 3 posters. We'll send them to you. Probably too late to get to your house for Christmas at this point, but you could give somebody like an IOU, maybe a late Christmas gift, a New Year's gift. Pretty good deal.
For sure. Yeah, I really like that. I like that promo.
Yeah, so LSUposter.com. For that one, you get to put in your address, pick out your posters. All you got to do is download the Caesars app, make a deposit, and a minimum of a $10 bet. All right, let's recap week 15 quickly before we get into week 16. This was either quarterfinal week or it was the last week of the regular season in fantasy leagues. And the stars showed out, at least at quarterback, Spence. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. You were in good shape if you had any of those guys. You were in good shape if you had anybody in that Vikings-Colts game or that Jaguars-Cowboys game.
Right. Yeah, especially that Jaguars Cowboys game, which I had pegged as the shootout of the week, ended up with even more points than I even expected. That was pretty wild there. Trevor Lawrence delivers again, and then Kirk Cousins, what a day he had, pretty much all in the second half. So yeah, it was a good week for QBs this week. They've been kind of struggling this year, but this week was a nice resurgence for a lot of guys.
Yeah, I don't know that we see that this week. I really don't.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts injured, of course. Ashley says hi from Charlotte. Who dat? Hi, Ashley.
Yo.
We're hoping that Saints-Panthers game on January the 8th is meaningful. Um, let's talk real quick, Spencer, about Jalen Hurts because he is hurt. He will not play this Saturday against the Cowboys. Good chance he doesn't play next week against the Saints either. Um, so if you're a fantasy owner of Jalen Hurts, you're in trouble if you don't have a good backup. So is Gardner Minshew a possibility? We're going to talk about Brock Purdy later. Who are the guys you're targeting?
Yeah, those are the two. I'd say Purdy and Minshew. I had put Purdy on the waiver wire when we get to that. But yeah, Minshew, I kind of forgot. Like, I mean, I knew Hurts was out, but I didn't really think. I was like, yeah, that means Minshew's probably going to get the start. And yeah, in that matchup, I think he's going to do pretty well. He's got weapons. I don't see the AJ Brown, Devontae Smith duo falling off a whole lot just because of Minshew. I mean, I think he showed when he was in Jacksonville, he can start and throw it pretty well. So yeah, I don't see the Eagles falling off a cliff if Hurts doesn't go.
Yeah, and that's one of the few games being played indoors this week, and so you can target that game, Eagles Cowboys. So maybe you just go pick up Minshew if you're a Jalen Hurts owner, but
Yeah.
it's not a great situation, not great timing. Running backs for the second straight week, Jerick McKinnon, the top scoring running back of the week, and the guy only gets like 8 to 10 carries a game, but he's being useful in the passing game and he's making the most of his touches.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, McKinnon was huge. I mean, he's we'll get to him for the star. I mean, but he's just like amazing, right? The past 2 weeks, and helped me win in some dynasty leagues, which I got him super super late in the startup draft, kept him stashed all year, and it's paying off now. And then the rest of those there are the usual suspects.
Yeah, Derrick Henry, a big day for the Titans against the Chargers, and he's got a smash matchup against the Houston Texans this week. So look out for that. And, those guys all just rolling of late. Wide receivers, Zay Jones. We talked about that Jaguars game. We also talked about the Vikings Colts. KJ Osborne went crazy. Justin Jefferson came through. And then the name at the bottom. Where'd that come from?
Yeah, not too many of the usual suspects here. A lot of new names showing up. Zay Jones actually has been really good lately. He's now a must start. But yeah, KJ Osborne out of nowhere. At least Jefferson still did good. This is more of a downside though for Adam Thielen, looking like Osborne might be emerging as the number 2 in Minnesota. And then yeah, Russell Gage. I think that was a fluke. Like he happened to get the touchdowns, but I still think Evans and Godwin are the ones to have over there.
Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah, and Julio was out. That's why that happened. If Julio comes back, Gage, he's gonna go back down.
All right, so keep an eye on that injury report. If you're a Russell Gage owner, you're looking for maybe a WR3 for next week. If Julio's back, Gage is out. Tight ends, George Kittle, a nice week on Thursday night. Juwan Johnson just continues to impress. And if the Saints do throw the ball on Saturday, if they are forced to throw, it's going to be short throws. It's going to be Alvin Kamara, and it's going to be the tight ends.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I mean, he could end up finding the end zone and salvaging the week. I don't think he'll get 22 again, but I think could still get double digits if he can find the end zone, which is possible. So I don't mind him this week. I mean, they might we'll have another streaming option that we'll get to later that I really like. But yeah, a lot of these Kittle, Knox, Kelsey. I mean, we know what they can do. Uzama kind of popped out of nowhere with 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, listen, Juwan Johnson. I mean, you're not starting Saints this week unless you're desperate.
Yeah.
Maybe Alvin Kamara, maybe Chris Olave, maybe Nick Chubb on the other side, but you're not starting guys from that game in the passing game unless you're desperate. So you just got to stay away. All right, stars of the week. You mentioned him, really incredible. I mean, I don't know, Jerick McKinnon again. Only now he had the 8 catches. Part of this is because the Chiefs were in a game where they were behind or tied, or they had to keep throwing the ball. If they had continued to take a lead against Houston, I think Isaiah Pacheco gets more of these touches. But for a guy who's only 61% owned, like if you're in one of those leagues, there's 40% of leagues out there where he's not owned. Go get him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's pretty wild to think that he's been in like an RB1 at this point. And I remember those dynasty startups because it's one of those, the dynasty startups you draft like 40 rounds. So like I was like in the 20 something round, and I was like, well, damn, Jerick McKinnon's still here. This dude, like last year down the stretch, CEH didn't do so well, and guess who stepped in as the beneficiary of that? Jerick McKinnon. The same script has happened this year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire disappoints, ends up injured. Now McKinnon racking up.
Yeah, I mean he has become what people thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to be when the Chiefs drafted him. So
Yeah.
just incredible. Now the question is, can you trust him going forward? It's a timeshare with Pacheco.
Mm,
You just never know. I mean, I guess if you got him at this point, you got to start him unless you
yeah.
have really good options.
Yeah, it's a good matchup this week. I'd start him and Pacheco against the Seahawks. I mean, that's like one of the worst run defenses. They took advantage of the Texans matchup, and they should be able to do the same this week. Keep riding the hot hand.
My star of Week 15, Josh Allen of the Bills on that Saturday night snow game, 4 touchdown passes, also added 77 rushing yards. Look, when you draft these guys, you spend a third-round pick on a quarterback. This is why, because Josh Allen comes up. This is exactly what you want. His best score of the year, right at the right time. Again, either your last week of the regular season as you fight to get into playoffs, or your first-round playoff matchup. Exactly what you want to see from your star players.
100%. Yeah, I actually had him in my best ball tournament. So I got advanced to the next stage of that thing. And then I didn't even need him in my big money leagues. I had bye weeks. But yeah, hopefully he can have another big week this week so I can win some cash.
Yeah, although the Buffalo has a weather game this week as well at Chicago, so we'll see how that shapes up. That one might not be as bad as some of the others. Same thing with Seattle, Kansas City. It's going to be cold in Kansas City. Might not be quite as bad as some of these other games, like in Cleveland and Pittsburgh. And even in Carolina is supposed to be pretty bad weather this week. So I mean, just everywhere you look, it's going to be rough going. Even the Thursday night game, I don't think the weather is going to hit New York as early as Thursday. And so the Jags and Jets, you might get a little reprieve if you're starting a Trevor Lawrence or a Zay Jones or Travis Etienne. Those guys may be okay Thursday night because the weather's not supposed to hit there quite as early.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I would feel okay about that one. Yeah, those Saturday, Sunday. Man, it's gonna be a cold Christmas, y'all. It's gonna bundle up. It's gonna be freezing. Even like down here, we're supposed to get freezing weather.
Yeah, yeah,
Crazy.
and again, just a week where for whatever reason there's just not that many indoor games either. Cowboys and Cardinals, I think, are at home, but that's really about it. And so the Colts on Monday night are at home. So you've got to plan accordingly. All right, Bayou Bets Listener League semifinals. Spencer the Guru steals the last spot from me. Now he faces Bucktown Rebel. 14-1 against 9-6. On paper, it's all Bucktown, but I'm looking out for the Guru squad.
Nice. Yeah, I think and Justin Fields. I mean, we mentioned that would be a weather game, but I think him and Josh Allen will be just fine because they can run it. If it does turn into mud or like they'll both still eat because they're both like they're like running backs or fullbacks or in a lot of ways. Like they can carry the load on the ground. So I'm feeling good here. CMC been rolling, and yeah, he's got Justin Jefferson that could be dangerous, and Brown. I'm guessing that's AJ Brown, but he did
That's AJ Brown.
yeah, I
Yep.
mean he could get affected with Hurts being out. And Bucktown's been riding that stack, so might catch a break there. But yeah, we're gonna see. It's gonna be fun, and yeah, got a slated dragon.
Yeah, I did
and
notice
one. Damn.
Bucktown has Jerick McKinnon sitting on his bench, so I'm sure he'll
Ooh,
activate him.
yeah.
So it could get very interesting. But Guru, you also have Saquon Barkley. I didn't have room to list him in those key players there. Hoping for another big game from him, and then CMC going against the Commanders, who Barkley got last week. I really like the way this shapes up for you.
Let's get it.
And if the Guru wins, since he is ineligible to win the Saints-Panthers tickets, that means the winner of the other semifinal would automatically, no matter what happens in the championship game, you're second place. You get those tickets, and this could be a showdown. Bama Fikes a little bit of a stumble down the stretch, but finishes in second place at 11-4. Team Minoka beat me twice down the stretch, contributed to my collapse. Thanks a lot. I got the that says GS. That should be TM. Team Minoka. It's got Austin Eckler and Aaron Jones, very strong running backs, facing Bama Fikes, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Jacobs. I believe he's also got Amon-Ra St. Brown. So this is going to be a heavyweight battle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, both of these teams look pretty solid. They just seem like teams that they don't have quite the flash of Bucktown Rebel, but they've just got consistent, solid pieces to where it's going to be like a heavyweight fight and one of those deals to where, like, yeah, I mean, whoever wins it, like, if they can, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to hate on Bucktown, but it's like, even when you have like that dominant of a regular season, it's really hard to push through. I mean, I'm hoping
Always scares you, doesn't it? Something's going to go wrong after. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I kind of like in my big money leagues. I'm the 2 seed, and I got the bye weeks, but I'm not the one like with the big target on my back. Like, I had a strong year, but didn't quite like hit my peak yet. I'm hoping my peak will be in when it counts here. Same thing in this listener league. I'm so stoked. This might be, if everything goes according to plan, this might be, I don't want to jinx it, but this might be my most successful fantasy football season ever.
Ooh.
It's got potential for that. To where I've won, had the year where I won, I think, like 4 or 5 leagues, but this year I'm still alive in 10 leagues. And a lot of those are 8 out of 10 are cash leagues. So I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch, but man, if they do, it's gonna be litty.
It'll be a nice Christmas for Spencer.
Yes.
And look, all it takes is one bad week, though.
I know, man.
And
I
with
know
the
I'm not gonna
weather,
win them all, but
yeah,
out of 10, I'll take my chances.
right. No, that's absolutely true. If you're in the Final Four in 10 different leagues, you figure you're at least getting 2 or 3 of those. All right, let's dive into Week 16. Drop your questions here on the Fantasy Roundup. Drop your comments. Tell us who you're up against in the fantasy football semifinals. Put into the universe who you need to pop off and who you're fading this week. Who you need to just chill. Just chill. Last night I had a big my biggest cash league. I had a decent sized lead, and I was fading Aaron Jones and Cam Akers, the 2 running backs on either side. And they both had good days, especially Aaron Jones. But I lucked out. A.J. Dillon got the first couple of touchdowns instead of Aaron Jones, and I ended up holding on by about 10 points. So I had a big lead and just held on. So I'm into the semifinals in that one. Had a bye in my other money league. So yeah, let's go. Let's see what happens. Drop your questions. Drop your comments. What do you need to happen this week as we move into Week 16 waiver targets, Spencer?
Right. Yeah. Let's start off with Brock Purdy. I think he's going to have a pretty good week this week against the Commanders.
Oh, boy. Boy.
I tried. I'm sorry. I've tried. But those bad puns can be rough. But yeah, Purdy, I just don't, well, I do think he's going to do well. I don't see why people I think because he's, Mr. Irrelevant 7th round pick and all that. It's hard to really trust him, but I feel like he's gained the trust of the 49ers, their system, and it's a very fruitful system with a lot of weapons. So should do well. Another player in that game that I think could do pretty good, Jahan Dotson with Terry McLaurin drawing the number 1 cornerbacks there, number 1 coverage. He should keep his good run going, been a good end zone target. And then the question I've been getting a lot lately, Deion Jackson or Zach Moss for the Colts with Jonathan Taylor Dunzo. I'm going to say Deion, though, because he had some really good weeks earlier in the year when Taylor was out, and he's the guy that's capable of catching passes. He had a week where he caught, I think, 10 passes. So I like him a lot, especially in PPR. And then Chigo Okonkwo for the Titans. He's the tight end streamer I like this week going against the Texans.
Now, it's interesting you bring up that Colts situation because Moss got a lot more touches on Saturday than Jackson did, but Jackson did more with them. So that's kind of that classic, do you want the 20 touches and the guaranteed 60, 70 yards? Or do you want the guy who might pop off and get you a long touchdown and catch 6 passes?
That's what I want, the upside. I feel like Zach Moss is like a poor man's Deontay Foreman. And we saw what Deontay Foreman. Deontay Foreman will have his weeks, but when he bottoms out, he really bottoms out. There's no floor with these big backs because they don't catch anything. Where that the receiving backs like McKinnon or Chuba Hubbard or this Deion Jackson cat. I mean, at least if they catch 5 or 6 passes, even if they only get 20 yards rushing, that's a lot better than if the big back bottoms out and get you nothing.
You're watching the Fantasy Roundup on the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. Hit the like button, comment button, subscribe button. Help us out. Spread the word. Share with your friends. Leave a comment for us. What are you worried about in the waiver wire? What do you need lineup decisions, and who are you fading this week? We go into, speaking of waiver wire decisions, you got to add somebody, you got to drop somebody. So who are we dropping? A lot of these, a couple of them are injury based, Spencer, but at this point in the season, it just narrows down. I mean, you're only looking into the future for 2 weeks. So if a guy's not going to help you in one of those 2 weeks at least, what are you doing?
Yeah, you got to move on. Pierce is as they shut him down. Like Jonathan Taylor. Everyone knows about Taylor. Pierce, the reason I put him on here is because they low key shut him down. They didn't really They did it on kind of at a weird time. I remember I was like, man, people might not even realize he's out for the season. So yeah, he's done. Y'all gotta cut ties. He had a nice rookie year, but unless you're in a dynasty, if this is redraft, you got to move on. And then Chase Claypool's never really gotten up to speed with the Bears, and he's banged up too. So got to move on from him. But yeah, the two that aren't injured, that I'm just straight up moving on from, Deshaun Watson and Alan Lazard. Watson just hadn't gotten in a rhythm and has the weather game this week. You can't trust him. And then Lazard is with Romeo Doubs back. Looks like Doubs is now back to number 2. Him and Christian Watson, the top 2 targets in Green Bay. So Lazard, it's not enough there for him to be fantasy relevant.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have to kind of squeeze that sample size down. All you care about is this week and next week. Deshaun Watson, terrible weather this weekend. Next weekend, they're in Washington. Pretty good defense, good pass rush. What are you going to – how is he helping you over, let's say, Gardner Minshew? Gardner Minshew's indoors this week. He's going to throw the ball. Then they get the Saints next week. We don't know about the weather for that game, but, he's at least going to help you in one of these weeks. Deshaun Watson, I mean, look, you drop these guys, somebody else, unless you're in a dynasty league, dropping these guys doesn't hurt you at this point. If you're not going to play them, get rid of them. So you don't need to stash a guy just because you're afraid somebody else will pick him up. There's only 3 other teams alive, and there's only 2 weeks to go. So you really need to kind of change your standards for which you keep a guy. If he's not going to help you, you don't need him. DFS. DFS, we talked about the totals this week, Spencer, and only 6 totals at 44 or above. There's 8 of them, 39 or below. This is really going to affect DFS. For some reason, you see one of these games as why is the total that low? It should be higher than that. Maybe you target that game and everybody else is staying away, but otherwise, you've really got to pick out who you want from those big scoring games because everyone's going to be targeting them. So let's take a look. I'll go first. My DFS values for this week, and I'm looking at Seahawks Chiefs. Geno Smith only 5,800. Seahawks have thrown the ball a lot. They're likely going to be behind in this game, and so you're playing a little game script here where Geno Smith's throwing on one end and the Chiefs with the lead try to get to the clubhouse. Who's the guy they feed in the running game? It's not McKinnon, it's Isaiah Pacheco. So I can get both those guys for less than 6,000. I like that. Similar thing in Nashville where the Titans, Derrick Henry is smash play. He may be way too owned to go pay up for. But on the other side, the Texans are going to be chasing the game. And with Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins not playing most weeks, Chris Moore has really upped this game. He's gotten several targets. You can get him for less than $5,000. And then a tight end, I don't really like the tight end slate this week. I do like the guy that you picked out, Spencer, we'll get to in a minute. But I don't mind Dallas Goedert if he comes back. You're targeting that Eagles game. Gardner Minshew, Dallas pretty good defending the tight end, but Gardner Minshew, the last time he was a full-time starter was in Jacksonville in 2020. He completed 80 passes to tight ends, which is above average. So he will target the tight end. If Goddard's coming back, not a lot of people are going to be thinking about him. They might be worried about the injury. So I do like that play. Who you got in DFS this week?
Yeah, but man, normally a lot of times I disagree with 1 or 2 of Zach's, but man, I liked all yours this week. Those were all to me very solid. So if y'all want to go ahead and combine ours and form a lineup, go ahead because I
use them in your player pool and make 4 different lineups. I mean, you can make mix and match.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I got a few. Yeah, I got some deep dives on mine. Yeah, Daniel Jones, I like. He's indoors against Minnesota. I like that matchup. Minnesota's pass defense really bad. Matt Ryan kind of struggled against them, but that's just, I mean, Matt Ryan's just
Even then,
terrible. So
he threw a couple touchdowns in the first half. They had a big lead, so
yeah,
you got something out of him.
for sure. And then J.K. Dobbins, this is one that I think they're at home is probably going to be a weather game, if I'm remembering right. But that's, I think, in the favor of J.K. Dobbins because, man, he has been running hard. He's had over 120 yards, I believe, plus in his past 2 games. He's back. He's back healthy. He's rolling. And at 5,800 for a running back with that much upside, that's a steal. That's a steal in my book. So I would definitely get him in your lineup. Marquise Goodwin with Tyler Lockett out, I think Goodwin could be a sneaky play, especially against the Chiefs, who can give up a lot through the air. And then Chigo Konku, mentioned him on the waiver wire segment, really like the matchup.
Yeah, no, I like those two. Target that Seattle passing game. The Giants, I mean, look, the Giants passing game is so hit or miss, but Daniel Jones against that Vikings D, he's probably going to get some rushing yards too. Like that, it's not a bad spot at all.
Yeah, just
We
take
talked about
Dobbins matchup. It's Atlanta, really exploitable matchup.
yes, and honestly, like the Ravens offense in general, something you could target in that game because it is a bit of a weather game. Don't think it's as bad as some of the others. If I recall, let's see if it's on this totals list. It's not one of the top 10, so it is under 40, but there's a chance Lamar Jackson comes back as well. So listen, fading Atlanta's defense is a good place to be. Speaking of defenses, Spencer, we did this last week. Some defenses you can stream. Now, you came up with 3 just specifically for this week. I put the full schedules on for fantasy semifinals and then the championship weekend. Uh, Look at the Chargers, man. Indy and the Rams, and they're both indoor games, so maybe you don't get as big of a bump. But you talk about 2 teams that a team that's getting some help back defensively from the injury front can really exploit.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people are ignoring the Chargers because they've been so bad on defense this year, but I think they're starting to turn a corner because they're getting healthier. They've got something to play for. They're in the playoff hunt, and I mean they've kind of changed their identity here down the stretch. Like Herbert hadn't really shined all that much. It's been more their defense and their running game. Like Eckler's done his thing and stuff. So yeah, I like them in this spot against the bad offenses there. And then same with Cleveland. Really like Cleveland. They get the weather game this week, and then the Commanders, the Commanders are all right, but as we saw on Sunday night, they're not what some people made them out to be. I mean, Taylor Heineke's all well and good, but he is not a star. He is what he is. He's mediocre.
He'll turn the ball over a couple times, especially against that pressure.
He's not. And the Titans, more specifically for this week, don't want him in championship week against Dallas, but I mean this week Houston. I mean that's like the dream matchup.
Yeah, and I mean with these defenses too, we talked about how you can sort of raise your bar, right, for who you're willing to keep on your roster. I would not advocate for this for any other time of the year, but this might be the week where if you love Tennessee this week and you can grab the Chargers for next week and you want to put them both on your bench, like there are guys out there you can just drop. Like you don't need that 4th or 5th receiver, even if he's decent. Chances are the other teams in the playoffs aren't going to go pick him up anyway. You're not going to play him, barring an injury. Like you can just kind of drop some of those guys who normally you wouldn't want to drop. But if you're not going to play them this week, that's already 50% of the weeks left. You could even possibly play them. And barring an injury, you're probably not playing them next week either. So, don't be afraid to pick up a second defense if you really think it might help you next week.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's like I would actually recommend that. Get 2 defenses, maybe even 3. It's good to have those extra ones. Block your opponents from getting them.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on exactly what you have, and if you have a guy on an injury report, you got to be careful. Don't totally kill your depth. But the guys who are sort of on the fringe that you've kept all year long, but you've only started during bye weeks or whatever, you don't need them right now. This is 1 week. Win this week, win next week. It's a max of 2 weeks, so you don't need all those guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you're watching the Fantasy Roundup on Bayou Bets and bet.NOLA.com. Hit the like button, subscribe button, share button for us. Let your friends know we're here every 2 p.m., every Tuesday at 2 p.m. during football season, all the way through the Super Bowl. Comes to the playoffs, we'll be talking a lot more DFS and prop markets. But for right now, all about that season-long playoffs, baby. And we got some sleepers for you. This could be the last guy you put in your lineup if you have an injury fill-in. This could be a DFS play. This could be a prop play. Let's see what we got. You're going deep sleeper, Richie James.
Yep, very deep, but great matchup. Vikings. They mentioned they give up crazy amounts of yardage to receivers. I mean, their secondary is garbage. It is not good. I mean, Patrick Peterson's old. Their other guys they're inexperienced. It's an exploitable matchup to where Richie James. I know the Giants. It's a roulette wheel as far as knowing who's going to produce, but it seems like Richie James is the one that Daniel Jones sends the target near the goal line. I feel like Hodgins more the chain mover, Slayton's more the vertical guy, and I feel like James is the one that's kind of the one that's in the most well-rounded. Like, again, it's not pretty. I mean, if you're not in a deep league, don't mess with it. But this is one for those that are in those real deep leagues trying to make a run.
I went with Romeo Doubs of the Packers. That's one of those few games that's not going to be a bad weather game. He came back from injury last night, Monday night, and immediately led the Packers in receiving. I think he had 65 yards. He's been a target in the red zone. Christian Watson, obviously the number one wideout in that offense. But the Packers passing game just showing a little bit of life the last few weeks. Still have something to play for. We know the Dolphins will give it up. I don't know if the Packers will win that game, but I do think it has shootout potential. And so, like Romeo Doubs.
Hell yeah. Yeah, likewise. I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, I do. Yeah, because I'm done with Lazard. I mean, I think he's done. So, Watson, I think Watson's still the go-to. But, yeah, Dobbs makes for a nice a sleeper. I mean, just a sleeper. It's not
It's
someone
a sleeper, yeah. Watson, you're going to start. I mean,
yeah.
Unless you're really loaded, you're starting Christian Watson. But I kind of like Romeo Doubs in that matchup as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be a shootout there. Hopefully it is, to kind of get the, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. You got news on Dillon. He's out of concussion protocol, so he should be good.
All right. Final thoughts, Spencer, as we go into semifinal week, Listener League coming down to it. Oh, man, it's going to be good. You got Bucktown Rebel, and then we got Bama Fikes against Team Minoka. That could be for the tickets. If you take down Bucktown Rebel, this is the game for those Saints-Panthers tickets. We could have our winner this week because Spencer can't win them. I'm not going to give them to him.
I'm going to already be there. I'll have a credential.
Yeah, you're going to be working anyway, so you're not getting those tickets. They're good tickets, too. So Saints-Panthers tickets on the line. If Spencer were to lose, then it would come down to the championship game next week. Spencer, what you got going into semifinal week here?
Don't overthink it. It's as simple as that. Don't go and be like, I like Richie James, you like Romeo Doubs, but don't be like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and start Richie James over like A.J. Brown just because Jalen Hurts is out. Don't make crazy decisions like that. Start the people that got you there. Go with your guys. The only adjustments maybe like with these weather games, like maybe pivot away from like an Amari Cooper with the Browns or something like that. Donovan Peoples-Jones, maybe even Chris Olave. I like Olave, but in that matchup, I don't know. So keep an eye on the weather. If you have a logical like weather concern, maybe, but outside of something extreme like that, then start your studs, man. Don't get crazy. Don't get cute, as they say. Because I've had that happen before. One year where I started, I always remember it because it cost me a money league. I started Alex Smith over Russell Wilson, and ended up costing me. And because that year Russell Wilson was facing who was at the point the number one defense, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it scared me off. And then at that point, Alex Smith had been trending up in Andy Reid's system, but ended up costing me. So start your studs.
And
people.
you never forget. It's the worst feeling in the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
I will say this. The only place I'll push back is the extreme weather. And keep an eye on these forecasts.
That's what I said.
Saints Browns is the big one. But I think Bills Bears has potential to get bad. Maybe Pittsburgh, Vegas on Sunday night has the potential to get bad. Baltimore, Atlanta. I mean, keep an eye. If you're that 25, 30 mile an hour wind, sustained winds, that's the magic number. Once it gets above that, like, are you starting terrible. Chris Olave? I don't think I am.
Yeah, that's true. I think
Amari Cooper, I don't think I'm starting those guys. They're just not going to see very many targets. Now, if you're in a place where you don't have anybody else to pivot to, but I would be very wary of those guys.
Yeah, Richie James, Romeo Doubs. Yeah. We know that, and I'm glad we have the sleeper segment this week. This will be a week where that could really come in handy because if you have to fade someone due to the weather, I mean, a lot of those sleepers, they'll be available in a lot of leagues because the non-playoff team shouldn't be worried about it unless there's like a consolation prize. But most leagues don't mess with that, so they should have your pick of the litter as far as picking up sleepers this week.
Yeah, so very interesting. Don't be afraid to churn your roster. If you're not going to start a guy this week, chances are you're not starting him next week. You don't need him. You don't need him. But pick up guys you're going to need or could use or could block your opponents. So be aggressive with that waiver wire this week if you're still alive. Congrats to all of those in the semifinals. I will not be here next week. It'll be Spencer and Gabe Henderson running the show next Tuesday for championship week. But we wish you the best of luck. Spencer against Bucktown Rebel. Can't wait to see how that comes out. Merry Christmas to everybody. We'll be back Bayou Bets 4 o'clock on Thursday to preview Christmas weekend in the NFL, college football, the NBA. So these same channels, 4 o'clock on Thursday. Until then, for Spencer the Guru, I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for watching the Fantasy Roundup.